Hey, this is Casas and Conversations with Darien Cruz. We've got a special guest today, Ryan Williams. Ryan's a local contractor here in the area, and I wanted to have him on to go into some detail about a lot of items that, as a realtor, I wouldn't be able to do justice explaining. We do like to have some general knowledge in terms of construction and best practices and those sort of things, and things that we keep an eye out for, particularly when we're looking at properties or showing homes to our clients, and also when we're preparing to list. But having the knowledge of an actual contractor is really going to give us some huge benefits. So we're going to go ahead and bring Ryan in. Ryan's coming in now, and he's going to introduce himself a little bit and talk to us a little bit about his background. Hey, Ryan, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being on. I appreciate it. I kind of wanted to give you a chance to sort of introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers, and tell them a little bit about your background, maybe how you got into the business.
Okay, great. So my name's Ryan Williams. My company name is Hop2it Home Services. We are a full-service handyman and remodeling company here in Raleigh. We service the Triangle area. How I got into the business, I grew up in a construction family. So my dad was in construction, my grandfather was in construction, my great-grandfather was in construction. So it's just kind of in my blood, and stepped out on my own about 2008, and been doing it ever since.
Awesome. And you said you mainly are in the Triangle. What's kind of your radius in terms of jobs you're willing to take? For those that are listening in the area, about how far out do you go, or do you just stay right in Wake County?
No, we definitely venture out. So we do jobs all the time up in Wake Forest, out towards Chapel Hill, Durham. We go out to Zebulon, cool. Smithfield. I'm actually kind of right on the Johnston County, Wake County border.
Oh yeah, Clayton around there.
Yeah, so we service Smithfield, Anger. We do dip into Harnett. We just don't have a whole lot of call to go down there. But
Sure.
We do jobs down in Anger. So a pretty good size radius. So I always, a lot of our referrals and work come from real estate agents. And so I tell my partner agents, if you go there, chances are I'll go there. So
awesome.
And if I don't go there, like I have guys that I refer work to down in Goldsboro that do a good job, Fayetteville, out towards Mebane, out in that area. So I always tell them, just give me a buzz, and if I can't help, I'll try and shoot you in
That's great.
the right direction.
Perfect. And, one thing I was going to mention too, we're going to show some of your social media a little bit later on, but for those that get a chance, check out Ryan's Facebook page in particular. One thing I like, you have a lot of videos on there yourself, and you go into some detail on a couple different topics that I think would benefit, a lot of our listeners. I was checking out the one on decks. That's something that comes up all the time when people are buying new homes. How much does it cost to replace a deck? Should I add it on? Mm-hmm. So there's some cool videos on your social media that I think people will enjoy if they get a chance to look at those. One of the things that we talked about getting into a little bit today was when I'm working with a client and I'm going to list their home for sale, we'll usually go over a list of certain things that they may want to take a look at in the home. Maybe some things that are worth upgrading or repairing, things that aren't. What are some mistakes that you see a lot of sellers making when they're trying to prep their home to put it out on the market? What are some mistakes you might notice, or some suggestions you might want to make?
Well, I'll tell you, if you're having that conversation with your clients, you're already avoiding one. So the biggest mistake is not having that conversation with their agent, or going ahead and taking it upon themselves to fix things before they have an agent or before they consult an agent. Too many times I see people who, they don't start looking for agents, or they don't let their agent know that they're planning on listing until okay, we need to have it on by next Saturday. Yeah. So, the biggest advice that I would have is consult your real estate agent before you do anything to your home. Mm-hmm. The other mistake I see is people spending money on the wrong stuff. And so
that's huge.
yeah, so we'll see people all the time where they assume, oh man, we need to fix up this bathroom, and so they'll call a contractor in to fix up a bathroom, and then they consult the real estate agent. The real estate agent says, well, you should have done this. Maybe it's painting or flooring,
Sure.
where they'll get their value, and they don't consult their agent to see where they're best spending their money. Sometimes it's best, the money's better spent on just doing like a handyman list,
Sure.
20 or 30 quick fix up items. Or sometimes you get the best value out of, carpet and paint are the most common, that people will get their value back. And whether that's a direct monetary return where, hey, we can now ask, full market price, or it may be a diminished time on the market. So then where you'll see a house that, even though if you had two houses that were exactly the same, this house A has new carpet and paint, house B is offering an allowance, this one's always going to have a shorter time on the market.
Sure.
So all of that basically just goes back to, just make sure you're talking to your agent and make sure you guys put a plan together. When you're interviewing your agent, make sure they have a team in place. So make sure that they have the resources available. If they're relying on you to do your homework and not saying who they get able to give you numbers, people that they trust that will take care of their clients, and maybe you need to keep looking.
Exactly. And that's really something that realtors, we have some realtors that are listening as well, but that is something you want to have. You want to have vendors that you can work with, that do quality work, that you trust, because you're putting your reputation on the line too when you're recommending, certain contractors, roofers, whatever it may be, to your clients. You want to feel confident in that recommendation, so then the clients will actually have confidence in you as well. So it says a lot when you can find a good team of people that you work with and that will take care of everybody's needs. It's huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I like some of the things that you mentioned. One of the key things I'll go over with clients before they list a home, if we're thinking about doing repairs or making any upgrades, is the ROI. What's the return on investment going to be? Is this worth it? Is it not worth it? And as from a realtor standpoint, we're also looking at the comps in the area. What do the other homes look like in the area? Are you going to do
Great
so
point.
much that you're pricing yourself out of the market? So those are some factors that on the realtor side, we have to take into consideration. And as a contractor, you'll know also, really what are the most attractive features out there on the market too. What do people want? What is important? Generally, like you said, certain things that do tend to bring back a little bit more value. So really having that team approach is a lot better than just, two heads are better than one. Sometimes, 5 heads can be better than one too, if you're looking at different specialty areas, but getting that team involved makes a huge difference. And it gives your client so much confidence too.
Right.
And I'm sure you've probably gotten referrals that, may have come from a realtor or another source that are now loyal customers of yours because they see the level of work that you do. So if something comes up, well, that's who we're calling next time. Obviously we're going to call, Ryan again because he took care of us. So these are the kind of things that, that make a big difference.
Yeah. Welcome to my business plan.
Yeah. It's the way to do it. Yeah. I mean, if you're giving quality service and helping people out, it's going to make a huge difference.
Right.
If they see, you need people to really see the value in what it is that you do. Thankfully, in your line of business, it's a very tangible sort of thing. You can literally see that it looks different than it did a month ago.
Right.
so that's a big plus. It makes a huge difference. There's also a lot of people that are listening that may be interested in flipping homes, that are getting into, investors. I work with some that live out of state, and they know that this market is a market where they can maybe get into some property at a third or even a fourth of the cost as what they may be able to get into it, where they're operating, whether it's New York or LA or Chicago or different cities, larger metropolitan areas. One of the things that they'll obviously need too is a good, dependable contractor that they can call on, not only to make sure the quality is there, but that they're in line with codes, making sure they're doing things properly. If you're from another state, the regulations are going to be different. where you're at.
Well, and expectations too,
For
you know,
sure.
those very big time by market.
Very true. Very true. What are some, if you have a flipper that calls you and they're showing you a property, what are some of the things that you're looking at when you go and see a property to sort of guide them in the way to show them sort of what's worth it in terms of upgrading or repairing?
Well, so when we're working with people that are flipping homes, you know, we have to be very mindful of their end purpose. So, is this a house that they're renting, or is this a house that they're selling? So, the strategies are different
And the
for each
budget's
one.
never enough, right?
Yeah,
When you're
exactly.
flipping homes, you want to do it for as little as possible, honestly. So that's a
Yeah,
challenge for you, I imagine, too.
yeah, it's a challenge, and you know, that's probably the biggest mistake that I see investors make is going into a home. You know, especially in this kind of a market where it's just very competitive. It's hard enough to get a house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then and that's just for people that are going through the normal process.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to get a house.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add into that investors and competition and trying to get the right house in the right area for the right money. And so when one pops up that the numbers work out, investors know that and they jump
Mm-hmm.
on it. And it's hard enough just to get the property.
Mm-hmm.
And so inevitably, especially right now, most of the time investors overpay.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
the biggest thing that I see is having you know, keeping their expectations realistic for what they're going to be able to accomplish with that home in order to get it on the market.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, and they a lot of times don't have the time to do the right due diligence to know what they're getting into before the keys are in their hand.
And that's really where the realtor comes in too on our end.
Right.
You know, we need to be helping them with that because it can really blow their minds when they see prices in this area and they think, oh, that's nothing. And we think they're getting out of control. But you know, if you're coming from another area and you see the prices here, it's incredible. You know, I can get a house for, you know, 300,000, maybe a split level built in the 60s, solid house. But even after it's renovated, there's still a cap in certain markets on how much they'll be able to then ask for that home. It's not like some cities where you can have a $2 million home next to a $600,000 home.
Right.
Our market's a little bit different in terms of, how neighborhood or block specific it is. So that's something to keep in mind. And as a contractor, I'm sure once someone opens up something that was built in the 60s and they start finding mistakes, then you got to fix them.
Yeah, exactly. I always encourage investors to get, during the purchase process to get a home inspection of some sort.
Oh, yeah.
So, if they're not, they'd be best getting a full home inspection through a licensed certified home inspector.
I always recommend that.
Yeah. And if they, a lot of times though, they don't have the time or they don't, for whatever reason, they don't want to open themselves up to liabilities and things like that come around with knowing that, sometimes it's, they feel like they're better off not knowing.
In terms on the seller side, you're saying?
Yes. On the seller side,
Yeah.
So,
I know what you mean.
So, I would, the biggest thing I would recommend is going into a purchase for an investor, going in with a clear plan, and having a good grasp on what their buyer is going to be asking for. Yeah. And do that from the very start. I had a real quick story. I got called by an investor to get an estimate for a property up in Durham. This is a house that she bought sight unseen, literally at auction, was at auction to buy another house. And this one came across and there was like 4 pictures that she had and just literally bought it kind of spur of the moment.
Wow.
And she knew that the house didn't have an interior. So it was completely gutted down to the studs. Yeah. And she paid, I think it was $70 for this house. Sorry, my phone.
Oh, that's fine.
Uh,
So 70, you said 70.
70,000.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, not 70,000. She paid 70,000 for this house, and the market was at about 160.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So she thought well, whatever this house needs, I can do it. Well,
Sure.
it turned out when I went there was the first time she had been there as well. It was one of those, hey, can we meet at this house?
Yeah.
And it turned out basically the whole floor was shot.
Oh,
The whole floor needed to get replaced. Beams and joists were all rotted out, had massive termite damage.
oh,
And she ended up, losing money on that house. And we see that, unfortunately. We see investors get just kind of caught up and go into a house with not a clear path to success.
for sure. Yeah, that's super important. You really want to know what you're getting into. If I'm representing on the buyer side, I really push always to get your inspections done. I mean, there's nothing, I can't think of any reason why you wouldn't. Only reasons why you should. And really, even if you're worried about the time frame or getting it scheduled, your agent's going to have probably some preferred inspectors that they work with that they know do a good job, and will prioritize sometimes them to get them squeezed in the schedule. And if not, they'll have backups, or they'll have a way to get a backup. So just don't overlook that. Get that inspection done.
Yeah.
One of the other things we were going to talk about is maybe some mistakes, and we may have touched on a little bit, that are made during the due diligence process. Is there something you see people overlooking maybe that they should be paying more attention to?
Yeah. So this is a mistake that I see a lot of times realtors make, and sometimes their customers just aren't educated, their clients. So, and a problem that I see a lot is something will come up in the inspection report, and it'll say, let's just say that like there's cracks in the drywall, right? So it could be pretty harmless. So the agent is going through the inspection report and says, oh, well, it says there's some cracks in the drywall. A painter can come and fix that for, $750, right? So not a huge expense. A buyer kind of thinks, well, we're painting anyway, so not a big deal.
Yeah.
Well, what I see a lot of times is things like that can be signs of bigger issues. So, I recommend, and usually those are in conjunction with other things. So also on the report, it might say something like, in the crawl space, we noticed that, it's a high moisture content. We noticed that there's no vapor barrier. We saw past signs of termite damage. We saw, just various different things where somebody could look at those as individual issues. But then if you have somebody come in who's knowledgeable, who can look at the house as a system and not as individual components, you can really kind of pinpoint a problem. And it might, something like that, could be just cracks in the drywall, could be just elevated moisture content in the crawl space. That could be a sign of some major structural issues that need to get rectified. We did a job just a few weeks ago with this exact issue. This is why it was fresh in my mind. Buyers had just closed on the house. It was one that we had, a real estate agent that we work with all the time, and buyers had just closed on the house. And he said, hey, you guys got recommended, come and fix some drywall cracks, and we got some painting and stuff. And so we went there, and as soon as I saw the cracks, I went, oh my gosh, this is a mess. And we had to get it. I recommended that they get an engineer out to look, and sure enough, there was a major structural issue thousands of dollars to repair.
Yeah, that can get real scary real fast.
Yeah, it does. And especially, nothing crushes the new home nesting like a surprise like that, right? And talk about kind of egg on the face for the agent.
Yeah, that's not fun. I'm glad you actually shared that, because that's important for for all of us to keep in mind on our side of things too, to make sure we're
Yeah.
really doing our clients, a service while we're in the due diligence period and not a disservice. We want to,
Right.
we don't want to freak them out if it's not a big deal, but we also don't want to overlook something that could become a bigger problem, which is why generally I'll tell, look, I'm not a contractor. I'm not a handyman. I'm not a contractor. If there's an issue, I'm going to help you find the right people to find the issue and then the right people to fix it. I'm neither of those people. so, I'll try to, if it's something blatantly obvious, if I see half the foundation falling to the side, I might bring it up. But, generally that's why we have the inspections. We bring professionals in, and I'm not going to have the person that does the inspection negotiate the terms of this sale either. We all have our specialty in what we work in. And if we focus on that, we tend to be better at that thing. So that's awesome. Yeah. Really good advice. And one of the things, and you actually addressed this, I believe, on your social media, one of the videos you made, and I thought it was really good. Why hire, a general contractor, and maybe in what situations, versus a handyman or a specialist for a specific task? If people have the thought, hey, well, they're just going to sub that out anyway. They're going to bring in their own subcontractors. Why don't I just hire the subcontractors? So what kind of advice would you give people as far as what makes sense in those situations?
I have a little bit different feelings on this, obviously.
Yeah, maybe slightly biased, but still, but valid points.
So, like a handyman, stuff that we get hired for doing handyman work is like, painting, caulking,
sure.
Hanging up pictures, little stuff like that.
Yeah.
I always recommend, if you're doing any kind of electrical HVAC work, we don't even hang our own ceiling fans. If somebody calls us to hang ceiling fans, I call my electrician.
Gotcha.
So anything like that, you want to hire a specialist. But there's also a lot of value in hiring somebody like myself if you're trying to solve a problem. So like as a case in point, we did a job last week, 2 weeks ago now, where we got called for a roof leak. They had water showing up on the kid's bedroom ceiling, and it was right after a rain. So of course they immediately say, "Oh, this is a roof leak." And so I send, we don't do our own roofing either. I hire that out. So I send my roofer over there, and he says, "Yeah, we found some things over here, nothing real major. We did some sealing, replaced there's a couple damaged shingles in the area, so we replaced those." So, so he said, "Well, but nothing that I would equate to meaning that there's a roof leak." I said, "Okay." So then I go back to the house, and I said, let me crawl up in the attic and see what's going on. So I crawl up in the attic, and we ended up finding a clogged condensation line, which happens all the time.
Okay.
And ended up having to get the HVAC guy over there to clear the condensation line clog. So if that person, and this was a customer I've done a lot of work for, so her first call was to me.
Yeah.
So if she had just called a roofer would have gone there and said, "Yeah, of course, I fixed a couple broken shingles, sealed some stuff, should be all good."
Yeah.
And then next week would have come, and they would have said, after they had the painter there to paint everything, and then the water would have reappeared, and she would have been calling the roofer again, and they would have been going back and forth, and so who knows how long it would have taken.
Yeah. That's great. That's a really valuable story too. I mean, that's the kind of thing that when we all have our specialties in areas that we know, maybe a box that we tend to work in and stay in. But if you're a general contractor, your box is a little bit bigger. So you may be looking for things that someone who only specializes in roofing or someone that only specializes in plumbing won't be looking for. Right. And then when you identify it, well, you can bring in the guy who does the roofing every day or the plumbing every day, and they're really good at that thing, and have them go in and fix that.
Yeah, and that's a great point. We lean a lot on professionals and people that are specialized in their individual tasks, and
sure.
there's value there in that.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah. So you have a running back and a quarterback and a wide receiver. You may have some guys that are athletic enough to
right.
do all that, but in general, you have certain roles that you played. It makes the end product better. So that's fantastic that you do that.
Yeah, exactly.
What are some maintenance tips you have for some of the listeners? Homeowners in particular, or let's say people that have brought you out, you've done some work for them. How do they make that last? How do they know that they can maintain it in a proper way so they're not having to constantly have repairs done?
Probably the biggest thing I see is caulking.
Okay.
And it's pretty relatively simple, and caulking in the bathrooms in particular, in and around the shower, in and around the tub. A lot of times I'll see people be really diligent about caulking inside the shower, but they don't caulk where the flooring meets the tub. So we see water getting in there all the time and rotting out subfloor. And then if you've got vinyl flooring or like a new type of LVP, which is touted as waterproof, it's not waterproof unless it's the edges are sealed and caulked. Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of moisture getting underneath those kinds of floors and not having any way to get out and causing water damage.
Yeah.
So that's probably the number one. The number two, which is a big number two issue, would be crawl space maintenance and just being aware of what's going on down there. Either taking it upon yourself to kind of check it out once a year, or hiring somebody out. Home inspector will do that. Home inspector will come out and you just say, hey, let me get a crawl space inspection. They'll come out and just do that. Won't be the full rate of a full home inspection. Just say, hey, can you go down there and just make sure I don't have any. We've seen pipes leaking. We've seen, termites and stuff, obviously, just all kinds of stuff. Things just pop up that if you don't catch it, they turn into very major issues. Sure. So yeah, that's probably the top two.
What would you say are some warning signs maybe that a homeowner should be aware of? Is there anything else that they need to keep an eye out? If I see this in the bathroom, if I see this on my deck, call.
So inside of the house, you want to be mindful of smells and feel. So, if you notice that your house is more humid or it's starting to get kind of a musty smell, that's a sign that your crawl space is having an issue. And a lot of people just kind of forget about the crawl space. And I really stress the crawl space because it can change. It can change based on, if there's erosion in how your gutters and downspouts are hitting the ground, where now all of a sudden those downspouts are flowing back towards the house. That's going to create a crawl space issue. If your gutters are clogged and overflowing, that's going to create a crawl space issue. People will get landscaping done and the landscaper doesn't take into account drainage properly. And so now all of a sudden water is draining towards the house and that's creating an issue. Additional concrete, where the concrete guys don't pitch concrete properly and it doesn't flow away from the house. So anytime there's any changes like that, really close to the house, you kind of want to monitor and just be mindful of how that's going to get water away from the house and get a sense for how it's affecting the crawl space if it is.
Sure. And we're talking a lot about, financial, impact of some of those decisions and not being aware of, or maybe not maintaining things properly. But a lot of times when you talk about moisture and mold, those can be literally life or death issues. I mean, you can have people die because of black mold in a home. So those are the kind of thing that you do not want to ignore. Definitely get somebody out there to check that out. If it's one of my clients, call me and I'll be able to refer you, to somebody like Ryan who can go and make the repairs that are necessary, or inspectors to go and check those things out. We talked about the knowledge, quality of work, knowing what you're doing, specializing in these different areas. Can you touch on the importance of the quality of the materials maybe that your contractor or specialist are using?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're blessed right now in that we have access to so many different products and so many different things and so much information out there and knowledge that we can tap into at any time. Um, and, you know, unfortunately, along with that, we also have access to materials and things that are inferior that are sold and touted as being, you know, best thing since sliced bread. Or that they're marketed in such a way that is, you know, it's not done with negligence or anything like that. But, you know, like I alluded to a little bit earlier, the LVP that's touted as waterproof, all these waterproof floorings, which they're, you know, things like that. If you go into it knowing what you have to do to make that possible, that's one thing. But a lot of times, you know, that's just not how it's done. So it's not just having the right materials, it's knowing how to properly install them and make sure that they're installed in such a way that they're going to be able to get the result that you're looking for and make it worth the investment for what you're spending on the material.
Sure. Yeah, I was one of those guys that decided to install his own flooring and thought it was going to go great because I had installed one type of floor before and that was fine. So I figured, oh, this other type is going to be the same thing. It was not. So it was a wreck. It was just making noise and squeaking all over the house. Eventually had to have someone come in and do it the right way. Oh, that's what I did wrong. Oh, and I also did that wrong. I should have done that. So it would have been a lot easier just getting someone who knew what they were doing from the beginning in there instead of attempting that, you know, ourselves sometimes. It's great if you're handy and you can do stuff. That's awesome. But there's a reason some people do things for a living and others don't. You know, it makes a big difference when you know and you're doing this every day. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, and I recommend, you know, people, when they are hiring people to do work, make sure that you're interviewing several different people. So even people that call me, I'll ask them, you know, are you checking with other contractors to make sure that I'm the right guy for this job? And you know, because you want to make sure that they're a good fit for you and for the work that they're doing. For the most part, if somebody says, yeah, I do everything, I'm the best at everything, that should be an immediate red flag. I've been doing this for a long time. I've literally been in construction my entire life, since I was a preteen. And I know my limits, and I bring people in when, even stuff that I can do competently, not necessarily at the level that I expect our work to be done, I'll hire out because you know, you just have to make sure that it's done correctly. And the way to do that is to have people doing it that do it every day. So there's definite, and then you save on time and everything else too.
And headache.
Oh my gosh.
The misery of something being done wrong. It's worse than just not having something done, you know. And when we approach it the same, or at least I do, you know, on the real estate side of things, you know, I specialize in residential. That's what I know. That's what I like to do. I enjoy it. Could I help someone with a commercial deal? I mean, legally I could. It's the same license.
Right.
It's not my specialty. I don't know the ins and outs of that. I have some agents who I've been able to vet and work with who I know are really good. You know, if you're looking for that, call me and then I can help you. I can refer that out. You know, I can help you get in the right, you know, with the right person that'll help you. And it's crazy for agents really not to do that.
Right.
You know, agents can refer out to other agents, and honestly, you know, we get paid when we refer people out. You know, they'll pay us a percentage. There's never a referral I won't accept and be willing to pay another agent a referral for business.
Right.
It would be insane for me not to do that, and it would be insane for me to keep a client just to do a subpar job and then never get, you know, referrals after that for residential jobs or help them in the future on their next sale. It just doesn't make sense, you know? And I think it's good that you have that mentality as a contractor also.
And you know, along that, something else we'd have in common is the liabilities that come out with trying to tackle a task that's not necessarily in your wheelhouse. Because there's ins and outs to all this stuff, right? And there's liabilities where if you don't do it right, there could be legal repercussions. There could be further damages other than just the cost of whatever that job is. You know, for me, if I went and said, yeah, I'm going to go fix your roof, and I get up there and do it, and I don't do it right, and it leaks and causes damage inside the house, I have to take care of that. So
Oh yeah, yeah. If we make some huge error, and it was basically just us not doing our job in a competent way, in the way that we're supposed to where we're liable. Yeah, that can be a huge problem for
Yeah.
realtors as well. And not only that, it's just to your reputation. Who's gonna
Yeah.
want to work with you if you're just doing a terrible job? That's not how you want to do business. I wanted to show too everyone your. I'm just going to go to your Facebook page real quick.
Okay.
Kind of let them see where they can find you. So if you're watching the video version, what you can see right here where I'm showing the share screen. For the rest of you, it's Hop2it Home Services, HOP, the number 2 IT, Hop2it Home Services LLC. On Facebook, you can see we've got their contact information here. Hop2itnc@gmail.com. Is that the best way to reach you?
Yeah, that's that they can. We've got a website. If somebody, if they want to go to our webpage, Hop2it NC, you can submit for an estimate request on there. This week, you'll be able to go on there and schedule a consultation with me. We're getting my Calendly account linked to the website, so they'll be able to schedule that. So
awesome.
So yeah, it's those are the two best ways. I'm very active on Facebook. So yeah, that's the best two ways to get a hold of me.
Yeah, and we're looking at the website right now. That is hop2itnc.com. You see here all their contact info. You can get a free quote from Raleigh's #1 trusted remodeling and handyman service right there. I like how you have the links as well. They're bonded and insured. Give them some reviews. If you've had them do work, put some reviews on Yelp, put some reviews on Google. Those are hugely helpful for any business. Any of my clients, I encourage them to do it as well. It's a big plus when people can get testimonies from those who have actually used you. And no one has any incentive to take time out of their day necessarily to do that. They're not getting compensated for that. But if you've done a good enough job that merits it, that's huge.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
So definitely do that. Give them a shout on your social media, refer them out. I want to thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. A lot of really good info for our listeners, for my clients. If anyone, once again, wants to reach Ryan, you can do it at hop2itnc.com. You can also reach him on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. They're everywhere to search for Hop2it NC, and you'll be able to find them. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
No problem, man. Thank you for your time.
Yep, absolutely. We will talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.
All right, everybody. That was Ryan from Hop2it NC. Really good information. I know I learned a lot, some things I want to put into practice working with my clients, and definitely some information I'm sure some of you can use, whether you're thinking about listing your home, buying a home, things you can look out for, or investment properties, whether it's rental or flipping to sell. You'll be able to go in and have a better understanding of some of the key things you want to look for. Where are some of the key areas that you can invest your money if you're going to do some repairs and remodeling? You want to get that return on investment. Home is definitely a place to live. It's definitely a place to raise a family, to make memories, but it's also an investment. And like any investment, you want that to be lucrative. You want to be able to get your money's worth for that investment over time. And so one of the things that's going to help you do that is maintaining the home and making the necessary upgrades and updates as needed. And if you're not sure which those are, that's when you can call someone like Ryan, a general contractor, who can come in and give you some great tips on what to do to really keep your home value up and get the most out of your house. And if you just want to live in it, it's great to be able to live in somewhere that you like and you feel is up to date and to your tastes. And you can have someone like that help you out in terms of keeping it that way. Thanks a lot for listening. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe. We'll have lots of other great content coming out, some more videos. If you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, whatever platform you choose to use, Google Podcasts, please write reviews. Let us know if you have any questions, any topics you'd like us to discuss in future episodes. I appreciate your time, and you've been listening to Casas and Conversations with Darien Cruz. Take care.